I looked at the positive of what it meant to meet every single week. And I differentiated myself or my group against all other meetups out there.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Multifamily and More Virtual Mastermind. I'm so excited to be here tonight. I can't wait to get into this topic. My name is Jamie Gruber. I'm your host with my co-host down below on my screen, at least, Mr. Benoit Malie. Say hi, Ben.
Hey, guys. What's up?
Not too much. How was the new year, buddy?
Good. Nothing crazy, just like I wanted.
Thought the French got nutty New Year's Eve, no?
I did not anymore. I went to bed a little later than you did, though.
Yeah, I did. Passed out 11:30. The kids warm me out. Literally watching the stupid ball, and my eyes just flickered shut. And I think it's the first time in my 41 years of life that I've ever passed out before midnight. But turning over a new leaf, new decade, new tradition, I guess, right?
New tradition, new year. Great. Really excited for this guest tonight.
Me too. I can't wait, man. This is going to be great. So let's get a couple pieces of business out of the way. For those of you who have not been on a virtual mastermind, the concept of this is essentially to be an interactive podcast. So you can listen to Adam on many podcasts, but this gives you the opportunity to actually interact with him. So there are a couple places you can do that. We have the chat box. If you haven't already, changed your to all panelists and attendees so everybody can see your question. We'll fish those out as we go along. In fact, Adam might even answer the questions as they go, and I'll grab whatever I can. Can't promise we'll get to all of them, but we'll get to a bunch of them. So drop your questions in there as we go. We'd appreciate that. There's a Q&A box as well. Feel free to use it if you're more comfortable. I'll look for it in both places. As far as sponsorship for tonight's broadcast, we're coming at you with our new website, multifamilyandmore.com. We have currently, I believe, 12 chapters nationally. You can go on that website and choose any of the chapters to join. We have a local organizer for each chapter. Really, really great content across the board. So feel free to join something local to you or maybe a market that you're interested in. Again, multifamilyandmore.com. And secondly, we've been populating our YouTube channel. We're getting pretty hefty content in there. This video will land there. So if you want to go back and rewatch in a few days, we'll have it on there. YouTube.com/multifamilyandmore. We'd love for you to subscribe, hit the notification bell, make sure that you get notifications when we drop videos in there. But this topic, everything from multifamily to more, which could be tax deeds, Airbnb. We've got Brandon Turner in there. We've got Jay Scott in there. We've got Gino Barbaro, and very soon our esteemed guest. So let me introduce him and let's get right to it. So Adam, who's sitting here, as you can see on the screen, has been investing since 2005. After repositioning his first apartment community in 2007 from $2 million to $4 million, as a property manager, he bought his first multifamily building. Since then, he's managed several single-family fix and flips, holds, I'm going to say hundreds at this point, of multifamily units. I think you could correct me if I'm wrong.
Definitely hundreds.
Hundreds. He is a legend on Meetup. I mean, I'm sure you may talk about it. If not, I might have to bring it up. As far as being a meetup host, I should say. And he's the host of the Created Real Estate podcast, which is a fantastic podcast if you haven't caught it. So Adam, welcome.
Thank you. And two things. Number one, I was more nervous, and I don't get too nervous, but I'll say I was more nervous about this because I didn't know how to prepare. When a lot of times I'll create a PowerPoint, and then I'll just deliver a PowerPoint. And when you talk to me about this opportunity, being more interactive, where literally people are asking the questions, and we just kind of bounce everything off. I was like, well, what's going to happen? How am I going to know, what to say? And so this is going to be interesting, quite fun.
I think so.
And the second thing I was going to say is, I know that you mentioned a moment ago that if you're on the Zoom chat, to change it from all panelists to panelists and attendees.
Yep.
But I could see a few people have forgot to do that. Daryl, Jeanette, Eric Olson, Kristen. There's a ton of people that just need Matt. You guys need to click all panelists and attendees so that everyone can see.
All right, we're starting to see a few pop in there. Perfect. Yeah, it's easier. Otherwise, you guys have no idea what questions are popping in there.
So Adam, just to let you know, I'm always as nervous to get on these as
right.
you might have been tonight.
Good.
Good
I'm not
thing
alone.
Is we won't have any tricky questions. And I'm sure it's going to be more like a conversation than that's how it usually
Cool.
ends up doing. So in any case, very, very excited to have you on the show. Let's start by maybe for those who are not yet familiar with you, a little brief background on you and your investing career to start.
Yeah. Well, Jamie kind of hit a couple things. I really started investing in 2005, but the interesting thing about that is I didn't actually mean to invest. I didn't want to invest. My stepdad that I grew up with since I was very young had always been trying to get me into real estate. He wanted me to read Rich Dad Poor Dad. He wanted me to play cash flow. And I was in college, 2005, and my dad just gifted me on Christmas this piece of real estate. And then he told me later, he goes, "You're going to have to pay me $100 for that." And I was just like, "Well, how much did you pay for it?" He said $100. He got it on a tax deed sale, which is something Jamie was saying that you guys cover on Multifamily and More sometimes. But I was like, "So you want me to pay $100, which is exactly what you paid. All you're doing is just offloading me a piece of land." I didn't know the value, right? Like I wasn't really ready for it. And as a college student, I wasn't really ready for $100. I was like, I got to pay for my books. Like, where's this 100 going to come from? I was a server and all that kind of stuff. So a server like putting me through college, and I was like, where am I going to come up with the extra $100? That's like a whole day's work. And anyway, the point is that I ended up paying for it. So you can technically say I did invest in it. I didn't buy it first, but I did buy it, and made a ton of money on it in 2007, like just 2 years later. And that really got me going. And as a dyslexic person, somebody who doesn't want to read books ever, I finally had this thought, well, okay, I'll read that book my dad's been trying to get me to read. And then I just got all about Robert Kiyosaki, and I found out that he didn't do any single family. He skipped it. So he made his wealth in multifamily. Most people don't know that, but I learned that in 2007, and it's what got me to say, I'm going to be in multifamily. So I started by managing property. Jamie mentioned earlier, I doubled the value of a property in a year. And I was like, that's when I got invested in multifamily myself, is in 2008, just the perfect time when the crash was coming. But I didn't buy it at the bottom of the market. I bought it at the top of the market, and it took me a few years to get out of it. And I'll turn the rest over to questions.
Okay. So, well, let's talk about this then. We talk about apartment buildings. So to acquire apartment buildings, we need capital, right?
True.
I've heard that you've developed a reputation for being able to raise capital. This is something a lot of us folks in the industry struggle with at first. I know there's going to be mindset, but there's also going to be systems in it, and it looks like you've created a system that can attract capital. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. I feel like the best way to start the conversation around capital is this thing called an avatar. So if you're on the call right now, or even if YouTube right now, I want you to write this down, especially if you've never heard it, avatar. And it doesn't mean a blue person like that one movie. It doesn't mean that it's an identical image of you. The avatar that I'm talking about here, it really means that it's your target client. It's the exact replica of your perfect client. And in our case, if you're raising money, your perfect client is really an investor, a passive investor. So like, I want you to have an IIA. Write it down, IIA. That means that's something that I coined, right? So everybody calls this thing ICA. Ideal client avatar, but for you, you're wanting to raise money. So you need to be thinking about the ideal investor avatar. That's really the main step. And once you kind of really understand who that is, and this is where we go outside of politically correct, because when you're thinking of your avatar, you are thinking about race and gender and religion and location. Like people, it doesn't mean that you don't have all sorts of people that end up investing with you. But when you define your avatar, you're going to say something like it's a 42-year-old male Indian engineer with 2 kids who's invested passively in 3 deals already. and has more than $1 million left to invest. They're worried about XYZ. You know what I mean? You really want to hone in. And what that means, it doesn't mean you're racist or genderist, sexist. All it means is that you're going to put a name to your avatar. You're going to name him or her John or Carla or whatever. Once you have that, you can start creating content that Carla wants to hear. And you can go to the places where Carla is going to be. And you can just, every time you start to make content or decide how you're going to reach out to someone like Carla, you're going to think, would Carla like this? Would John like this thing? And so, my avatar, he has a name, Siva. And I basically told you all about him, and the last thing that I didn't say is that I can have a beer with him. So what I mean by that is, in my case, my perfect avatar is I go to a multifamily event. You're going to have a different avatar. I go to a multifamily event, and if I'm getting along with somebody who is very similar to my avatar, of course, you don't always find a perfect exact, but I might just say, hey, do you want to go chat? Do you want to go and talk? Maybe we could grab a drink or whatever. If we can sit and have a beer, I know that if I explain to Siva, that's my avatar's name, if I can explain to Siva what my team does, I know that my avatar, Siva, is going to divert the money that he was putting at all of these other passive investments. He's going to divert it to mine. So I have coaching clients that I help find their avatar and brand themselves and go to the next level. And I want to say that what I generally recommend to them or to you listening is that your avatar is not going to be Siva. Like, we don't have to fight each other or box each other out. There's more money than there is deals. So whenever you find out who your avatar is, maybe it's a 40-year-old single mom with 2 kids that just got an amazing amount of money, whatever, like maybe you're figuring that out. And that's a completely different person that would be wanting to invest with me, but you resonate with them. You resonate with him or you resonate with her. So the point being, Benoit, as you share that raising capital is important, we want to think about it in steps toward the process and really focus on who we're attracting. Because many people, they say, Adam said I should have a podcast. So they just randomly make any kind of podcast, but that podcast title, the name, the guest that you have, the questions that you ask the guest, the intro, it doesn't resonate with your avatar. So your avatar's not even benefiting. What I see that happening with a lot of people is you're spending time doing literally nothing. You're going nowhere. It's like a treadmill, right? It's like you're taking all this extra time and attention to put something out there, but it never gets to the right person because you didn't take a step back and really think, who am I attracting? What do they want to know? Where are they going to go to find it? What questions do they want to know? What if they're scrolling through podcasts? What title are they definitely going to go to? If they're scrolling through meetup groups, and I'm trying to be a thought leader within meetups, what will they end up hopping onto? Do they want virtual? Do they want in-person? Do they want to learn how to protect themselves as a passive investor? Do they want to learn how to protect, how to have wealth preservation, right? Like, we might think that we're helping our perfect avatar when we say, well, I'm helping people learn how to do multifamily because that's what I invest in. But if we're not helping a passive investor, our perfect avatar, Siva, go from where he is to where he needs to be, then we're wasting time and effort. So I just want to start there. Find your avatar.
That makes so much sense. And it's kind of like starting a business without a vision, I think. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So Jamie and I went through this exercise not too long ago about what's our vision for multifamily and more. We're doing all these things, and we started with a little group, and then it became something bigger. We're like, let's refocus on what's our core, what are our core values, and what's the vision for what we want to create. We came up with three things: do more, be more, and give more. And Jamie, maybe you want to talk a little more about it, but I really feel like we have so much clarity now on what we want to do, and everything's just makes a lot more sense, and we're really targeted on the efficient stuff.
No, that's brilliant. There's a lot of chatter in the box here too, on the chat box, about the, awesome, incredible target market. Like, so that really landed, Adam, because yeah, I agree. Like Ben and I were creating, we're churning away on the treadmill, like you said, but only recently do we feel like we've got, kind of a direction, where we have a better sense of, and we probably even can get even more defined of what we're looking for. So that's perfect feedback. Question that came from Dee Dee is, why does your avatar invest with you over others? I don't know if that's getting too broad, or if you want to table that. Or...
Yeah, no, that's actually really good. And I mean, for every single human being, for everyone on this call, it's going to be a different reason, right? But as far as Siva goes, it's because we connect on a strong level together. It's because Siva sees me as perhaps like the underdog, okay, the underdog. And Siva knows he's got millions of dollars, and he knows he could place it with a lot of different operators that have, so I've been syndicating for almost 3 years. So to 2017, so 2.5 years. And the other people that he's been investing it with, he basically started investing with them toward the beginning of their journey, tried them out with 50 or 100 grand, got value. They started growing. He was able to feel a lot like a mentor with them, as he would share underwriting principles with them that they weren't used to doing. And he sees me as somebody who, at the time when I met him a year and a half ago, I think I had syndicated 3 deals. So maybe like 300 doors or something. And I really feel like Siva and others that are in my avatar list that are already doing this, they want to place their capital with somebody where they can feel like they're making a difference, that they're helping, that it's with somebody that has a lot of integrity. So even though a year and a half ago, and I still feel fairly novice at multifamily syndication because I teach it, I help other people, but honestly, if you're not still learning after even 10 years of syndication, like I will run away from you. I'm not going to place my capital with you if you think that you know it all, right? Yeah. So what I was trying to say for Dee Dee's question is, in this case, this avatar wants to feel like he's making a difference. He wants to feel like he can be a part of the growth. And when I'm grown, when he's placed $1 million with us, I feel like he'll find another person who's in their 30s and really wanting to do this and has high integrity. And Siva will likely go to them and say, hey, let me work with you. Let me invest with you. Let me try 50. And then on the next one, I'll do 200. And the next one, I'll do 500. So.
Okay. This is a good question. I think Scott is the name here. I like it. And I can expand on it. Does your avatar change based on offering or structure of deal? Or I would even say, does it change based on your experience or the types of deals you're doing?
It does, Scott. If you are working on finding an avatar, what you want to do first is take a step back and think about, where am I going to invest? What asset class am I going to invest in? How long am I going to hold it? What really truly resonates with me? And Scott's asking this question right now. Anybody on who wants to know, does my avatar change? You're going to think first, what do I want to do? Then once you've decided that, Scott, once you know exactly what kind of deals you're going to be doing, like what city it's going to be in, and how long you're going to hold it, you're going to start thinking about who, and try to pick one person. You can have multiple avatars, but just to try to keep it simple, try to pick one person that's really wanting to be a part of that. Okay. You'll want to figure out, if I'm doing multifamily in Oklahoma City, who wants to be invested in Oklahoma City? A lot of people in Texas don't. A lot of people in Oklahoma do. A lot of people in Denver do. A lot of people in LA do. And so you start to think about where your avatar lives, and then you start to think, what type of people in LA or Denver or OKC do you really resonate with? Do you get along with? And would place a good amount of capital into those deals that you're doing, like if it's multifamily. And then you're going to say, what am I going to do to attract that avatar? And as you figure that out, to answer your question, I don't feel like you're going to just get a different avatar every time you have a new deal. I feel like you're going to have a type of deal that you focus on for a long time, and then you keep attracting that avatar, and they keep telling their friends, and their friends tell their friends, and you just grow that database. And I hope that you don't try to switch types of deals over and over and over, because that takes a lot of credibility from you, unfortunately. Many people are like, oh, I'm going to do single family and multifamily and self-storage and assisted living because these are all good asset classes. But what the passive investor sees is that you don't know what you're doing. When you're looking at a lot of different things, when you're open to a lot of different things, when you're not really focused, the passive investor unfortunately says, this person, while they haven't got it all figured out what they're going to focus on, I'm going to pick someone who does, so I can feel comfortable, so they can be the expert in that niche. So I hope that helps.
I think so. I think it goes back to your point earlier. When you're developing content, it's not for you or an interesting topic, but it is for the avatar that you've created, right? And it's the same thing. I think you're saying,
yes,
when I have deals now, I'm not jumping on to a bunch of different deals. Like, I know what my avatar wants, so those are the deals that I'm going to focus in on.
Good.
Okay. So I think you've done a nice job of giving a kind of an overview of, the avatar that you created. And you gave a few tactical thoughts, like, I want to be able to have a beer with this person. There's a couple of questions, both in the chat and in the Q&A box, about essentially asking, can you walk us through, like, I think people are thinking, like, what's the first step I take toward identifying that avatar? Like, I get your philosophy, like, how do I think of 42-year-old Indian male in Denver or whatever? Like, how do I start that?
You know what? It's interesting because I think that our avatar can slowly change a little bit over time. So we might think that we're going to go for one specific avatar. I might have thought that I was going, for a doctor or something like that. And then later on, when I had a beer with Siva, it all changed. And now, I hate to talk about race or anything. It's not really about that, but I guess it is about that, but I don't want it to come across as like politically incorrect.
Sure.
I don't want it to sound like that. But when I'm at a conference and there's a male Indian in his 40s, I almost like beeline to just go and chat. I say, what, I found that I can resonate well with him. He can resonate well with me. And so although I have all sorts of investors that are younger, older, every other color, every gender. If I see like a 40-ish year old male Indian, I have always found that I can go and chat with them, talk about engineering. My father was an engineer, so I can talk about that, and I can talk about just how interesting it is about being in engineering, and talk about the growth of their company and what they're focused on, and just be genuinely interested. I actually like most people in this class, in this age range, gender, whatever. And so once you figure out who you resonate with and what's working, I just suggest that you continue to think of that person as you create content. You think of Siva, and like, what would Siva think if I put out content about this? Would Siva stop listening to my podcast if I put out an episode that taught this? Would he say, this is no longer relevant to me? And if you find yourself saying, yeah, I think Siva would say this wasn't relevant, then you just say, no, I'm not going to do it. Like, I'm only going to create information and put out content that brings my avatar from where they are to closer to me, not from where they are further from me. So I think that's really what you ought to be thinking, is more about who you resonate with and what you can do to bring them closer to you, versus like what exactly will I say to that avatar? And there was a couple of people that ask it, and we can like mastermind with them in particular and help them go to that level. But what's interesting is that everybody's avatar is completely different. The questions that you will have to approach a situation are very different. The thing that means a lot, and that I think you can take from this, and you'll remember this for a long time, is the questions that you ought to be asking, in Adam Adams's opinion, the questions that you ought to be asking your avatar have really almost nothing to do with investing or whatever. Most of the questions you ought to be asking are things that resonate between two people. You're really wanting to build a relationship of trust before you worry about all these other details. So if you're on this call thinking like, I'm just going to go and have one conversation with somebody, Adam's going to teach me all of the best sales tactics, and overnight they're going to be my passive investor, I want you to think again more about a long-term relationship with somebody that eventually turns into them wanting to be working with you as a passive investor. I slow play all of my relationships. I make them ask me. I try not to push anything. I try not to have a sales pitch. I try not to have an agenda. It's more just like, who do you resonate with and how can you start a relationship with them? And eventually, I really believe that if you do that, Siva or whoever, Scott, whoever your passive investor avatar is going to be, they're going to come after you. Just work on what I learned when I was a Mormon missionary for some time. And there's this term that we learned. It was called BRT. So write it down. Even in sales, they don't really talk about that unless you're learning sales from a Mormon. But it's called BRT, build a relationship of trust. It's the thing that matters more than what can I say, what specifically is the hypnotical way of like convincing them to work with me. It just stop going so fast. You don't ever, I hope you don't, because you probably get slapped. You don't ever go on the very first date and you're like, we need to get married, right? You just got to kind of court your person before you ever think about marriage. And what I mean by that is, I don't want you to get slapped by your passive investor when you're like, hey, I got deals, you should invest. Just be their friend, and they're going to be like, hey, do you have deals? I have money. And why haven't you asked me? I love it. And it's just reversing the role. I'll say one last thing that hopefully sticks in our minds is just think about a magnet. Think about a magnet, two magnets. And if you're on the positive side of the magnet or the north side or whatever, you have a force that basically pushes. And most people are on that same force already. But what's interesting is as you're not able to get together, if all you do is just turn around and stop chasing and start just pulling away, they're going to slap against you and be like, this is who I want to be, because they're different. So remember the magnet as you're building a relationship of trust with your potential avatars, your potential passive investors.
Love that. There's something that resonates with me as somebody who is all about Facebook groups. I love Facebook. I think Facebook prefers Facebook groups. Well, I know they do. And I think they're a great place to network. I look at it like realtors, like there's a million of them out there, but only a few of them are really active and actually any good. Right. But in Facebook groups, what you're describing, going in, meeting somebody, your avatar, and like peppering them with some sales pitch is the same as when somebody gets approved for the group and they start spamming it. Right. So it's like it's like live spam. So, I mean, most people are not comfortable going into a new group and saying, hey, 5% interest rate, no experience. Like most people are not comfortable doing that. You probably wouldn't do that in person either. And I think that's a good pivot toward a key tactic of yours, I think, and maybe I'm wrong, but you tell me, in meeting not only your avatar, but just, adding value to others and meeting other people that may want to invest with you. And that's creating this thought leader platform that you have. Can we get into that? That's part, near and dear to my heart. Like, how do you leverage that platform, or do you, I guess is probably the first question. And if you do, how do you leverage that platform in order to find Siva or whoever else?
Yeah. Okay. I've got some gold for you guys. Gold. I don't know what's better than gold. Platinum. Yeah, I've got some platinum to drop. Well, first off, one of the biggest things that happens when you have a thought leadership platform is the relationships that you develop with people that are at and playing at a higher level. So when people say your network is your net worth, you are the sum of the average of 5 people that you hang around with. If you can spend more time just podcasting or running a meetup group or mastermind group where the average of who you spend time with, like today I had 5 podcast interviews earlier, and all of them have millions of dollars. Like that elevates who I am. So I'll start by saying that. But Jamie asked, how do I leverage the platform to gain passive investors? And what I'll say there is it goes back to asking more questions. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth. And I think when you're at a networking event, you should use them accordingly. You should ask, have the other person talking more. So use your questions to kind of help direct that conversation in a good way where you can really understand somebody. And with regard to my podcast, I actually started utilizing, this is so crazy. I started using my podcast platform before I had a podcast. Now, this sounds nuts, right? You're like, what does that even mean? Now, what I mean is I went to the best ever conference 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago. And as I was at the best ever conference, I was thinking about starting a podcast. Literally, that's all it was. It was just in my mind that I was going to have a podcast. I had already had a very strong meetup, and I was just thinking I've got to have one. And while at that event, as I was having conversations with passive investors, I said, I love your story. I think it would be valuable to others. Would it be all right if I interviewed you on my podcast to give value to my audience? And what that does is allows me to sit down with that passive investor, be genuine and caring, and develop a little bit more of a relationship with that person. And later on, many of them have invested in my deals. And that's actually one of the things that I said to Siva. As we were sitting there, I was like, oh yeah, I love your story about investing in passively. And rather than sounding like I was just going to interrogate Siva about investing passively, I just used my podcast platform to allow me to ask him different questions. And I said, that's really interesting. I think that's really impressive. I would love to interview someone like you. And here's how people take the bait. So just write this down. This is my sales tactic. I would love to interview people like you, which it feels almost kind of like a backhanded slap. He's like, huh? Like, why don't you just interview me? And now he's going to want to sell himself. But anyways, that's a little sales tactic that some of you will definitely get. But I would just say, I want to interview people like you who have done this to help other people so that they can be safe when they're passively investing, because the things you're telling me, not everybody knows. They don't all know how to look at a market. They don't all know how to underwrite a deal. Could you come on my podcast and I could just ask you the main things that you look for in a deal, the main things that you look for in a market, the main things that you need to watch out for in a sponsor. And I could bring that out to people that listen to the podcast and help them so that they don't get in trouble. Now, Siva, or whoever your passive investor, is likely to be like, yeah, I really want to help. I really want to be there for you, Adam. I want to be there for all of your listeners. I would love to get the exposure myself. And he is going to sell himself on being that person that is like him. He's like, well, just use me. I'm right here. And so that's how I've leveraged my podcast to grow and my influence for many, many things. I just sit there. I ask questions, 2 ears, 1 mouth. And if there comes a good time, I actually say, if someone's brand new, I'll say, hey, do you want to come on my podcast and like ask me all these questions, and you just get free advice, but other people that probably have that question can hear it too. And the same thing, if I'm working with somebody who is just crushing it, like some of the people that I interviewed today on the podcast, they're just crushing it. I reach out to them. I say, I think my audience would love that. They get excited. They want the exposure. I learn a crazy amount from them. And I now have a relationship where almost all of the 5 today, we got off the call and I said, I think we need to really connect after this. I think we have some things some synergies that we could really work together on some stuff. So that's all of the, that's the ways that I use my platform to really allow me to get closer with these avatars. Now, I want to point out something that Siva specifically did. And Siva's a real person, by the way. He's spoken at 2 of my conferences, like he's a good friend of mine now. But Siva said, as I stated that I would love to have someone like him on my podcast, this is what he said. You have a podcast? And his face lit up. You have a podcast? What's it called? I want to find it. How do I find it? And I helped him get the podcast downloaded on his phone. And we had a great call. But what's interesting is with Siva, he called me just about 2 months later. And he said, Adam, I've listened to about 60 of your episodes. I want to invest with you.
Wow. Yeah.
So when you're asking like, what can a platform do for you? It can give you credibility that others don't have. If you continue to show up, like I've put out more than 350 episodes now, if you continue to show up and you didn't like quit your podcast after 20 episodes, then people know that you're the type of person that follows through with things. And if you're going to follow through with your podcast, you might be the type of person that follows through with your syndication. You might be the type of person that blah, 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 blah. And so I make sure that I do things like if Siva calls me, no matter what I'm doing, I really try to answer the call. And I did that before he became a passive investor because, well, number one, I like to answer my phone anyways. But number 2, I think that it's important to show Siva what I'm doing now today. And if I can do that continuously over time, he's going to know that if there ever is a issue, I'm going to pretty much answer on the very first ring. So these are just small, important, subtle things that I try to do all the time that show something to a passive investor that they might not even consciously be thinking like, oh, well, he's done 350 episodes, so that means they might not consciously be saying that, but it does resonate with them that I'm here to stay. I'm not a fly by night. I'm not going to take the money. And if you search for my name, you'll only find good things. Hopefully everybody on this call will continue to show good things. But as you do that and you build a reputation over time, you're going to get passive investors telling their friends more things, more about you and why they should be investing in your deals. So
I don't know if you could have articulated that any better. That was gold, and the responses equal what I'm saying right now. There was a lot of gold or platinum, whatever,
platinum
in there. Ben, what do you think? What are you getting from this? You got any thoughts right now?
I love it. I'm loving every bit of it, and no, I just everything resonates so much with what you and IJB talk about on a weekly basis. It's so I'm just loving all of this.
It does. It aligns so much. And there's a couple questions here about more technical, like around your team and terms you give investors. We'll get to that. Because I want to stick on, we got some time, so I want to stick on the thought leader platform for a second. But one thing you said that I wrote down was about 2 ears, one mouth, right? God gave you 2 ears, one mouth for a reason kind of thing. And the concept of adding value to others. I get this question from especially newer folks, people that are going to their first meetup, and they always ask, how do I interact? And I was like, just go from a place of what can I give versus what can I get? right, from this person. That's key to me. And I think what you said is exactly what I tell people. Like, how do I add value to somebody who's a seasoned investor when I'm brand new? And it's what you just said. Well, listen to them. Like, hear what they have to say. Maybe there's something in there you can help with, something you can give advice on. Might not even be related to real estate. Maybe they're having a marital issue that they bring up and you've got some expertise there, whatever. But if you just listen, you don't know what's going to come across that you can then potentially help this person with. And when you start there, whether it's live, a podcast with 300 episodes and great content that's tailored towards your avatar, you're giving value and you start to attract people. Is that a fair statement, Adam?
Absolutely. I want to say an additional thing to that person who was asking, what can I add value to somebody who's done more than me? And what I would really state there is what I did in the beginning is I became a connector. And so you don't have to have any experience to be a connector. And the more questions that you ask, the more you know about other people, the more likely that you'll be able to help them connect with somebody else. So what I would say is I ask a lot of people a lot of questions. I try to, get to know them really, really well. And oftentimes I'll just be talking to someone and I'll say, you need to meet this other person. Or even if it's at the same conference, I'll say, you know what? I met someone who literally has that exact thing. Let's go find them. Yeah. And that type of generosity, that giving mentality, where you're thinking of them first, it's just interesting how much they remember me years down the line. You're the one who put me in touch with this person, and I would have never done X if you didn't do that. That was really cool. Like, that stuff really sticks in their minds for a long time. So I agree with you 100%. And I don't want to take away from what you said about all things that you can do to help somebody that has done more deals than you, whether it's marriage or whatever. But definitely one of the big ones can just be remembering things about them, which you'll only do if you ask enough questions, and then connect them with the right people.
Great point. It's a great point. So on the Thought Leader platform, there's a couple of questions around this, but I'll try to tie this together. You are legendary on Meetup. You were invited to Meetup's headquarters.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
400,000 meetups out there, and you were one of 20 that actually.
There's 225,000 meetups.
I sounded better when
225.
We'll go with 400.
And so we had there was 150 of the top organizers from around the world, many, many countries, 225,000 meetups, and they invited 6 of us to speak, and they paid for our flight and our hotel. It was really, it was kind of overwhelming to be in the presence of so many people from, different countries who are really, truly crushing it at Meetup. And some of them that weren't invited as speakers had a lot more people attending. So I asked the engineers, it was in New York City. It was my first time ever to New York City. I didn't know I was going to go until Meetup brought me there to speak. But when I asked the engineers, if there's a lot of people here that have more attendees than me, why did you have me speak? And they showed me about the algorithm for Meetup. And actually, I didn't even know that Meetup had an algorithm until the engineers at Meetup headquarters told me about it. And they said that if you have the same people coming back time and time again, that's one of the biggest things that they see. So it's not always about how many people are there. It's about the community that you're building and how people continue to come. A second one is how active you are. So write these down. If you're going to start a Meetup, seriously, write these down. These are the important things that Meetup shows. And if you hack the algorithm of Meetup, what they're going to do, what Meetup headquarters is going to do, they're actually going to place your Meetup in front of other people's meetups in your same city. So now you have Meetup HQ helping you to advertise. So you do these other things, and now Meetup HQ is putting you in front of people, and they're hiding other people. So remember these things. There's four of them. The first one is that people continue to come back and back and back. The second one is how frequently you meet. So if you meet the third Tuesday 1 month and the sixth Wednesday, if there is one, another month, and the first Monday the month after that, Meetup HQ is going to say this is sporadic. People can't count on it. So they diminish you. They're not going to put you in front of the people. So you want to meet at the same time every month as far as Meetup's concerned. The third one that matters to you on Meetup, for Meetup to show you and do your advertising for you, is that people leave ratings and reviews. So Meetup already asks people to ask how the day was. But what's interesting is most people are lazy. Most humans are lazy, but most humans, when I say most humans are lazy, you know, you're shaking your head. Yeah, I kind of am. But what it really means is you're going to do the least amount that you have to do. And so when Meetup gives you a thing and says, hey, rate this Meetup, you're like, too much work. I'm busy. I'm not going to do it. But most human beings are also very caring, and they want to help. So if all you do is just ask people to be honest about the review when they get it, they're going to be looking out for it, and they're going to actually fill it out. And so because I actually have had more ratings and 5-star ratings and reviews than almost any Meetup in the entire world, like that was huge for me. That really set me apart. And then the fourth one is literally just how many attendees you have. So so it's not to say that having a big Meetup doesn't matter. It does, but it's not just because of the algorithm. So you're going to start a Meetup and you're wondering, why would it matter? Like, maybe I could get along better with 5 people or something. I don't know what you're thinking, but maybe you're wondering, why would I care to have a lot of people at my Meetup? And the reason why is because humans are like lemmings. And I don't know if you've seen a lemming before. Like, these are these like guinea pig looking animals. They're very small, hairy animals that live in the mountains. And what's interesting is you'll see a bunch of lemmings going all in the same place. And then all of a sudden they will stop at the edge of a cliff. They'll be like, holy cow, that is so far down. I don't think we should jump. And the entire herd doesn't move for minutes, for hours and hours and hours. But what's interesting is as soon as one lemming jumps over the edge to their death, the entire herd says, oh, we're going. And what I mean is not to say that you as a human or me as a human, we're going to do what's bad for us necessarily. But what I am saying is there's this interesting thing that if it's proven that socially that people like something, we naturally start to like it too. So when we think about how many people are going to attend a Meetup, if you have only a couple of other people, I was going to say lemmings, if you only have a couple of people that seem like they like your Meetup, then the new person's going to attend and look around and just be like, I'm not sure if this is like proven. I'm not proven that this is the right thing for me, or that you know, obviously people don't like this. So if you find a way to be a better marketer and to have good content and to really sell people on being there, even if you have to call your mom, when people attend that other Meetup where you have 50 or 100 or 176 people like I did each week, right? They're going to look around and say, there's something different about this. I need to keep coming. And I will give you a bonus on just marketing. Just one interesting thing that I did with my weekly Meetup. There's this term called spinning. So just write it down what spinning is, and spinning can be used for good or for evil. Spinning just means that someone says something about a product, whether good or bad, and you find the best angle to share it. That's all. On my weekly Meetup, when people look at monthly Meetups, I said, I might say, look, I just want to share why we meet weekly instead of monthly. You're going to easily be able to make The thing is that it takes, psychology has shown that it takes about 6 times to meet somebody. And so what I would do is I would share with people every single week on my weekly meetup. I went in and I said, look, I just want to share why we meet weekly instead of monthly. So the thing is that it takes, psychology has shown that it takes about 6 times to meet somebody before you actually start doing business. And I really care about you, and I want you to be able to do business with the other people in this room. Now, on other meetups, they meet monthly, and I get that. It's a lot easier on the organizer to just meet monthly. It's hard for me to be able to do this, but I really do it for you, because if it takes you 6 times to meet somebody, you would have to literally spend at least 6 months before you started doing business with somebody in a room if I was only meeting once a month. But because we meet every single week, in about a month and a half, you're already able to start doing business. So I really want to encourage you to continue to show up each and every week, no matter what, so that you can look around at these people and be able to start doing business with them. So whatever it is that you say, just remember that spinning, how to spin it. It's important to be able to differentiate yourself. We charge $1,000 instead of a free meetup. Why go to a free meetup? Like, that's probably going to be garbage. It is what you pay for it, right? So we just charge $1,000 each time. And I didn't do this. I'm just showing you the spinning. We just charge $1,000 because I want to make absolute certain that the people in this room are serious. Don't you want people to be serious? So it's obviously going to be $1,200 a year. You can pay that up front, or you can pay it monthly. You know what I mean? So you give the value, give the reasonings, you differentiate yourself from hopefully everybody else. We meet at lunch. Everyone else meets at dinner. I have kids. You probably have kids. It's very difficult to bathe your kid, feed your kid, do homework with your kid if you have to, try to go to a meetup in the evening. So what we do is we meet at lunch, and that allows us to be able to drop our kids off totally fine. We can meet for a couple of hours with serious people that usually don't have full-time jobs. They're actually serious. And after that, we're done. You're not going to be meeting with 10% of the room is going to raise. I always do this too. I say, raise your hand if you've done a deal, but not just any deal. It has to be something besides your own primary residence. Raise your hand. Well, the meetup inevitably had like 90% of people that were actually doing real estate because it was a lunch club. And so I wanted to show the difference to people that were attending, right? And I'm not saying if you're on and you're going to start a meetup, you have to do it at lunch. I'm literally not saying that. All I'm saying is whenever you do it, you need to be able to spin that and share with people the benefits of why you're different. Why am I free? Why am I $20? Why am I $1,000? Why do I meet at lunch? Why do I meet at 6 p.m.? Why do I meet on Saturdays? Why do I meet at Saturdays at 7 a.m.? Like, I'm actually going to go to a meetup in a couple of days on Saturday at 7 a.m. And they spin it by saying only the serious people are going to get up this early on a Saturday. Like, we don't want the rest of those people. And that kind of starts to create a tribe. So if you're going to do a meetup, I know I'm long-winded, but if you're going to do a meetup, those are the 4 big things. And there's a couple other bonuses that I really think will help you to start to develop your brand.
I love it. I love it. And that's, I think, the core of a lot of the questions is like, how do I start this? What do I do? And it sounds like very, very simply, get in meetup, find a location, create your meetup, and then figure out how you create value with that meetup. To your point, how you differentiate yourself. So make sure you spin that and leverage this algorithm in order to get reach. It sounds like is the core of it. Fair?
Yep.
Okay. Beautiful. We only have a few minutes left. There was a couple of questions I just wanted to get touch on. There's mention of your team, who your team might be, how you created that. So if in a few minutes, and then I want to make sure we get in a little bit more about you here at the end. Tell us about your team or how you created it or what that makeup is.
Team structure can be a lot of different ways. The biggest advice that I hope you'll walk away from me and know that this is like really what Adam thinks about building a team is that just similar to the passive investors where I was talking about, you want to date and court before you get married, before you ask for that proposal. I want to suggest that most people on here, as they're building a team, they don't just go straight for, I'm going to create an LLC. I'm going to have all 5 of these partners. I'm going to do that because I can't afford, or I don't think I want to get rid of that much money to pay employees. So I'm just going to partner with them, and we're going to start this new LLC. It's really important for me to really show you or help you to know that if you're going to partner with other people, I want you to partner with other people like a JV, like going on a date, right? You're not all the way like married, but you're doing a deal together. And if it works out, you do another deal together. And if that works out, then you start to form your partners. Now, the other point that probably matters about getting your partners put together is going to be the thought about a puzzle. A puzzle doesn't fit together because all the pieces are the same. A puzzle fits together because all the pieces are different. Your yin must be their yang. Your innie must be their outie. Like, you got to be able to fit together. So what I'm saying is, rather than just partnering with people or thinking that you should go with people that you just get along with specifically, well, if you're detail oriented, you ought to have somebody who is more people person. If you're really out there and a visionary, you ought to find an integrator. So just think about a puzzle as you're putting these pieces together. You don't want to all be the same. You want to be close enough where you have the same values and you can fit together and make something beautiful.
I love that. Ben and I used the disc profile.
Okay.
So if you can't tell from this, I mean, you know, I'm kind of the extrovert of the two of us, you know, more the outgoing type. Ben, as you can see by the dark image that he's in right now, because he forgot his light, he's the basement dwelling spreadsheet guy, right? Like, he likes to be down there pounding away, building systems and processes. And to your point, yeah, having those complementary skill sets has served us. What I'm not good at, he's great at. And when he's not good at, I'm all right at, right? So we complement each other in that way. And I think that was pure gold. And I think that's exactly what some people said here. Although I think they're undercutting you, Adam. They should be saying pure platinum. Pure platinum. Come on, folks. Let's get up with it. So, all right, Adam, tell us, listen, before I even get there, and Ben, you chime in if you want on this as well. Dude, this has been, you have given so much to people tonight. And they recognize it. I recognize it. Dude, I've written things down. I didn't know half of this stuff about the algorithm on Meetup. In fact, I'm going to take your learnings right now. Yep. This was on Meetup, this event. We've marketed it on Meetup. So folks, if you did enjoy it, I would love for you to put a rating and review in there for us, because we're trying to build our brand there as well. But incredible content tonight. Ben, you agree?
This was amazing. Yeah.
Just unbelievable. So if people want to know more about you, work with you, all of and everything in between, how do they do that? What's the Adam Adams brand all about? Where can they find you and work with you more?
Awesome. Well, I will tell you that my team and I wanted to do more for those people that attended this. So really, we wanted to make an offer, if you don't mind, if I can make an offer just to the people that are on right now.
Please.
And all that is we're going to do a 2-day, a 2 full day, like literally here in Denver. You'd fly out and you'd come and hang out with us for a couple of days. And all we would do is just talk about branding and raising money, getting your system set up. And so we went over a lot of different prices in the thousands. And what we ended up doing is we said what we can offer. If you go to, just go on this website, we literally just create it. We just want to help you guys. So it is going to be byob.realbluespruce.com. BYOB, not bring your own beer, but build your online brand .realbluespruce.com. And you can get tickets. It's going to be March 6th and 7th, a 2-day. And we're going to offer it to you guys for $397. So if that really gets you to the next level, what my clients pay me, a lot more than $397 for. We're trying to package it for you in 2 days to really get you to wherever you are, to being able to attract more capital, start your podcast, whatever it is that you need. I think we can really deliver that for you.
I love it. I haven't attended an event, but there were a few people from my meetup group here that went, and they were gushing about it afterwards. So, yeah, no, I think that's great. That's amazing. So Adam, man, thank you so much again. This was incredible. I keep saying it, I know, but I mean, you just gave me a page. I got all these notes all over the place here of stuff that you delivered.
Good.
They're all haphazard too, because that's me, right? Ben's are probably bulleted nicely. Go ahead, Ben.
No, I'm just really amazed by the chat box. It's going to be quite funny, especially when you download the files on Zoom after, because I do the edit. I download the comments as well, and I'm going to be surprised to read all of them again. This was pretty impressive. It keeps going and going and going.
Yeah, I would say this has been our most interactive one to date. We've done about 13 of these now, one a month since January of last year, and we've had some names. I mean, you included, Adam, but we've had some big people on with a lot of people that were watching. But the level of engagement that your content is prompting is damn impressive. I mean, kudos to you. So, Adam, thank you again for coming on tonight. Appreciate it so much. Yeah, it's been great, Ben. Hope you have a wonderful evening. And thanks all of you for joining us tonight. I know you all have busy lives and a lot to do. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. And I hope you all have a wonderful evening.
Good night.
Bye.